Welcome to the National Football Show with your boy Dan Sileo here, and we welcome you aboard on this Friday. Hey, you know what? What's great about the show and what's happened over the last 2.5 weeks here is that the more and more we go on, the more and more that we start to pick up some steam here, the more and more all of you are starting to engage all of the great content that we have here on JAKIB Media's channel / the National Football Show. We really appreciate each and every single person that is starting to chime in. By the way, I go over to the JAKIB Media channel. I see people posting comments. Everyone's loving what's going on, and we so love the fact that you guys have jumped aboard with us here. Thank you so much once again. And again, we have a gigantic show lined up once again. Now, look, I was just talking to my boy Krause here, and we were talking about how usually this is the dead time of football, and especially in the National Football League. But what's happened is the National Football League doesn't have a downtime any longer. When I was in the game a couple years back, you had like 3.5 months to get yourself prepared for the upcoming NFL season. And you kind of had a little respite. You could hang with your family. You could do that. Doesn't happen any longer. We've been mentioning all week long about how the NFL now has dropped these nuggets in like Pro Day and the Combines and every single thing that, they've now put on the NFL calendar. The NFL calendar is the biggest thing now in sports because fans now gravitate to that, and networks now make programming with that. I mean, the schedule drop, which we hit on Wednesday and Thursday and a little bit today we'll hit on. I mean, like I said, the Combines, Pro Days. Watching these guys at like the Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl is one of the most important things that a young college football kid can go to try to enhance his draft status. The game in Mobile is still today the biggest college football bowl game that any kid who's going to be a potential scout or a prospect for a scout to go and find a kid, maybe a kid you didn't know. I'll tell you something here. Justin Herbert went to that game, and he was the most valuable player in that game. And in that game, the Chargers and Tom Telesco, the general manager of the football team, went like this. Holy cow, this guy's better than I thought. He's gigantic. I think this is somebody that we're going to end up drafting. Remember, Tua Tagovailoa was the name that was, coming off that injury, but everyone didn't know. And the Chargers, they went with Justin Herbert, man. And in my opinion, that dude may end up being the best quarterback in that respected draft. So, again, all the things that we have lined up, just absolutely awesome. We got a packed show and content and a packed show when it comes to our guests. In this hour, college football, it never gets a respite. We have a brand new commissioner in the Pac-12, and we're going to talk to one of the top teams in the Pac-12. The head football coach, Kyle Whittingham, will join us, and you talk about a program that has absolutely just blown up since they were invited to play into the Pac-12. It has been the Utah Utes. Utes and Oregon have really grabbed a hold of that conference. Remember, in the past, it used to be Washington and USC. I think it's Oregon and Utah that go back and forth on the best teams out west. And you know what sucks about the Pac-12? It's not so much that the conference doesn't have great talent or great coaching. It's that the majority of those football games are on at 10:30 at night. You got a 7:30 West Coast time. The majority of the writers, the majority of the fan base when it comes to football are all on the East Coast. People don't sit up till midnight watching college football. You've been watching it all day long. ACC, Big Ten, Southeastern Conference football. You've been watching that stuff all day. I mean, how do you vote for a kid like when Christian McCaffrey was up for the Heisman Trophy, okay? How does that guy get any kind of run for the Heisman Trophy when his games are at 10:30 every night? It is such a disadvantage. If you're not playing at Southern Cal and you're not one of those kids at that program that's in the conversation for a Heisman Trophy, no one's ever going to see you. So we'll talk to Kyle and get his thoughts on what the new commissioner is going to do to try to improve people's viewing of that conference. I'll give you a point here before we move on and tell you who the next guest is that the Southeastern Conference, every single team in that conference, they make $50+ million a year. in revenue off of TV alone, not counting attendance, not counting sales of jerseys, not counting concessions at some of those gigantic stadiums in the Southeastern Conference. They make $50 million a year in TV alone. You imagine that? Vanderbilt, places like Kentucky. How do you compete when you're the Pac-12 and you're generating $25 million a year? You can't. And if I'm a kid who wants to get exposure and I was a four-star kid, okay, I'm not playing out west. I'm not playing unless it's Southern Cal and maybe Oregon. I would play. I mean, but if I'm not getting the exposure because of television and not because the programs and their fault, it's nothing to do with them. It's because of the time that you have when you put those 10:30 games on. So we'll talk to him. There's talk about doing more streaming. There's talk of doing more Facebook games. Earlier starts may help sell that conference a little bit more. It's a great conference, Pac-12. They just need more exposure. And in the second hour, we're going to talk to one of the greatest defensive tackles in the history of the National Football League. He's one of the most charismatic guys. He's one of the absolutely, how about this, firestorms guys that anytime you want a fire starter, Warren Sapp is your guy. Numerous time NFL Player of the Year defensively. In the Pro Football Hall of Fame, we are going to talk to Sapp Daddy. He's a spear fisherman now. Yeah, okay. He, I think, jumps out of airplanes. I know he scuba dives. Warren's just living life, and we'll get his thoughts on Tebow, Aaron Rodgers, and a plethora of stuff. We'll do that all in the second hour. All right, let's dive into this. You know, I've been talking to you about the schedule, and I've been talking to you like, you know, I mean, like I said, a day for the schedule. Well, everyone's now starting to dissect it. We're a couple days removed from that. You know, we look at, you know, the day, what game, rivalry games, you know, divisional games, when they're being played. And you look at that October 3rd game between the Patriots and Bucs. You got to put this into context here. How many more times do you think Tom Brady's going to be going to New England? He's 44 years of age when the start of the season happens. He'll be 44. 1 or 2 more years maybe. He's never going to play in that stadium ever again. Ever. You know the house that Ruth built in New York, in the Bronx? No matter where Babe ever went, no matter what Babe did, no matter what people said, it's the house that Ruth built. Camden Yard, it's the house that Ripken built. Indianapolis, it's the house that Peyton built. Very few places have that distinction. Okay? Gillette. I mean, you have to remember the history of the Patriots. Who were they before Tom Brady showed up? The land of Tony Eason, Steve Grogan, Jim Plunkett. Go back into the history of the franchise. The New England Patriots were like, okay. You can make an argument they were kind of like, I don't know, the Jets. They rarely had any winning. It was an abomination of coaches that had gone into Foxborough. The Sullivan family didn't really run the football team like you see the Kraft family running this thing. Since the Kraft family, by the way, has owned the New England Patriots, I mean, let's not forget they went to a Super Bowl with Parcells as the head coach. I know people forget that game. And Bledsoe was the starting quarterback. And the special assistant on that team was actually Bill Belichick. He wasn't the defensive coordinator on that team. And that team ended up getting drugged by the Green Bay Packers and Brett Favre. That was the team that Favre ended up winning a Super Bowl against. But since the Kraft family has owned that team, make no exceptions. They've been one of the greatest owners of all time. And I still to this day don't know how Bob Kraft is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I guess that whole massage parlor stuff from a year ago is probably going to have a little bit more distance before we start to see Bob Kraft's name get on some of these ballots. Because if Jerry Jones is a Hall of Fame guy and he's won 3 Super Bowls as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys since he bought the team, Bob Kraft has 6 Super Bowl championships. This guy has been to 10 conference championship games, and he's won them. How is he not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? But people they always look at New England and go, well, the Patriots, man, you're talking about one of the Tiffany friends. It's not true. It's been a 20-year run. My question will be with New England moving forward, and I think because ownership is still intact and the Kraft family, they're wonderful on winning and investing into the team and player evaluation. And really, I think the significant thing that Bob Kraft did compared to the Sullivan family who owned the Patriots prior is that they know how to evaluate personnel directors. They know how to evaluate head coaches. When Bob Kraft hired Bill Belichick, you got to remember, Art Modell went to him and said, worst mistake of your life if you hire that guy. Worst mistake you will make. Remember Woody Johnson said, this guy here has got, I don't know. Then they ended up making that trade, and they sent Belichick to New England. Draft choices came down. But Kraft wanted him. Turned out to be the greatest hire of all time. ESPN was writing columns on how poor that hire was. I mean, everyone. Seth Wickersham wrote an article calling it the worst hire in the history of the NFL. And he had to eat that. Yeah, one of the best writers in the NFL. And he had to eat that because that came back in spades on the Patriots side when you see what Belichick created there with Brady. There's no doubt. And I'm putting all of this in context for you because this October 3rd game this year, I want to throw some numbers at you. Already on Ticketmaster, the tickets are ranging between $1,300 and $12,000 for that game. You heard me right. $1,300 to $12,000 on Ticketmaster for that October 3rd game when Brady goes back to Foxborough and plays against Belichick. I mean, these two guys, and what kind of response do you think you're going to see between these two men when they shake hands? There's got to be admiration, and there's got to be a lot of, how about this? You're always thankful for the guy who showed you the way. It's one thing for a guy to put money in your pocket. It's another thing for a guy to show you the blueprint on how to make millions. What would you rather have? Money in your pocket? Or would you rather have somebody show you how to make billions? That's worth the money. That's what you want to have with people in a relationship. It's not about the dough. It's about the riches. And these two guys, look at the riches that they created there for 20 years. I mean, unprecedented winning, unprecedented not letting egos get in the way of one another. They allowed their personal egos, unlike Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones. What happened? Those guys let egos get in the way. What happened in San Francisco? The ego between Steve Young and the ego between Joe Montana and Bill Walsh and Carmen Policy all got in the way, blew that thing up. Look at what's kind of holding on a shoestring now in Green Bay between Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Ego is the worst thing in the world for an organization. Look at it in Philadelphia. Everybody wants to get the credit for bringing that Super Bowl championship to the Eagles. Oh, it was my personnel decisions. No, it was my coaching. No, it was. Forgot the players on the field, obviously. When you're a great organization, you hear nothing. You ever hear the Steelers crone about putting championships together every year? Never. Hey, and for the record, I want everyone to know this. When I talk about the Steelers, I'm a fan of what they do. I'm not per se a Steeler fan, but how do you deny it? 3 coaches since 1969. 3 head coaches since 1969. And they're all Hall of Fame talent. Chuck Noll goes in there, changes the culture, brings in all those Hall of Famers. He probably drafted 10 Hall of Fame guys. Then you had Bill Cowher go in there, pick up the baton. He goes in there, wins a Super Bowl, and he's in the Hall of Fame. Now you got Mike Tomlin, higher win percentage. Talking about a guy who's equaled anything Cowher has done. And that's a Tiffany franchise on how you want to run your business. And they've done it 10 times longer. The Rooney family is just sensational. Sensational. on how they consistently bring out and put out players and put out winning football teams. Like, how about this? I don't ever remember the Pittsburgh Steelers sucking. Do you? I never remember them doing that. They've had a couple skip years, but that team's never been down in the dumps. And I said this a couple days ago after the draft, them getting Najee Harris from Alabama, putting him in the backfield. They struggled with 3rd and 1 a year ago. Man, you correct that. That Steeler team could be a 13-3 team and a frightening team, because with Hayward on the other side of the football and Watt, those guys can play. They can play some football. They can play some football. But again, circling back to consistency and putting out like great winning teams. The Patriots, we'll see what they do post Tom Brady. But that game, hey man, October 3rd, look at the NFL gods. Those guys just sit there. And you know what's cool about it? They look at you, the fan, and they do this. Watch. They look at the schedule and they go, what do you think fans want to see? How can we – this is unlike the NBA, like I said yesterday, or Major League Baseball. The NFL does this for you. And get this. They know this. If it's good for you, it's good for ratings, which means it's good for advertisers, which means you're tuning in, which means they're in tune with you. These other networks are not in tune with you. These other leagues are not in tune with you. This is what they do. Watch this. They look at it and they go, Bucks Cowboys, what do you think? Opener, Thursday night. We got to give them like a team. Why not just go like this and look at it and go, okay, well, why don't we put the most recognizable team in the world? The richest franchise in the world. Why don't we put them on at Raymond James Stadium against Tom Brady in front of a full house on a Thursday night? What do you think, guys? Yeah, thumbs up? Let's do it. The NBA doesn't even give a rat's ass about that. Their players don't even go out and play during the regular season. I mean, look, LeBron played 53 games this year. Put his hand up, didn't want to play. Oh, that's right. Wait a minute. Let me back up because he's injured. Really? Okay. Yeah, right. Okay, and by the way, you got a guy like Brett Favre. Guy's playing with a ruptured spleen or a torn pec, or players out there playing with broken bones, broken jaws, broken feet, everything, man. You're out there playing because you love it. You see, you got to remember something when you're a football player. Hey, man, you love kissing cheerleaders and cashing paychecks. You really do. You love doing all that. But also what you do love is the game, because the game's got clarity. The game is the best game on the planet. I learned so much from that game. You know, I tell my daughter now, who is in rugby, she plays Division I rugby. She's on scholarship at Grand Canyon University. She just got through her freshman year. And she's like this. She's, she's like, Dad, what do you always have to, prepare yourself? How do you prepare yourself for every season? I go, Dee, it's got to be with the love of the game. You got to love what you're doing. All the accolades will come if you just put the work in. And that's what these players do. I said this yesterday to you. I don't think the American public and the American sports fan, I don't think they begrudge in any way whatsoever what the players make. And I'm talking all athletes. I don't think anybody begrudges that. Doctors make more than people who work in sales. A person at 7-Eleven may work just as hard for their job and to support their family, okay? But then there's another job that you work just as hard, they make more money than you. I mean, look, the job that I do versus my grandfather's job, let's put that out there. My grandfather was a fireman for 30 years. I've made 4 times the money my grandfather made. Doesn't mean his job wasn't less as important or he worked as hard. And where I'm going with this is that Americans love people who work their ass off. That's what the NFL is. Training camp, boot camp. There's kind of that comparison, right? Being able to play through some pain and adversity, correct? That's what they love about the NFL. Nobody likes to hear guys like Kyrie Irving taking a night off because he's upset about something emotionally. Who cares? Like Lamar Jackson with the Ravens says, nobody cares. Who cares? Okay? You got to go out and you got to play your ass off at all times. You got to go out and put out, and that's what the American sports fan loves. And that's why they love the National Football League. This October 3rd game, 2021, the tickets, like I said, between $1,300 and $12,000. That's absolutely insane when you're talking about that game. Think of the eyeballs that are going to be on that game. Think of the exposure the league's going to get. Think of what it means to the Brady brand. The fans this year, I think this is going to be one of the absolute greatest ratings years that the National Football League has seen. All right, real quick, before we go to a timeout here, Deshaun Watson's case is starting to heat up, and there's a lot of buzz going around now. And there's a lot of teams that are sitting back and waiting to see how this is going to play out. Let's not forget something. Prior to all these accusations and the sexual misconduct that is out there, there were at least 5 to 6 teams that were in the process of potentially making a deal to try to get the Houston Texans quarterback to come and play for them. The Jets were involved in that conversation. The Dolphins were involved in that conversation. The Broncos were also involved in that conversation. And if you know one thing, all of those teams made a move in the draft because, in my opinion, because of what's going on in Houston with all of these accusations and all of these cases that are still out there pending. We've got the latest on what's going on with that. Also, Kyle Whittingham, the head football coach of the Utah Utes. We're going to ask him about the new commissioner that they got and about his young football team going forward in 2021. We'll do that next. You keep it right here on the National Football Show.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
7-on-3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 to 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
The light from a star can take millions of years to reach Earth. So when you look at a star, you're looking back in time. But I see the future. I see exploration and courage. I see my country finding new horizons out there. And I see giant leaps making a comeback. I see myself. The future is where I'll make history.
D-A-T-L-E-S-E-O! Jody Mack, the legendary sports talker, joins forces with NFL insider John McMullen. Start your morning with Johnny Mack and Jody Mack across the JAKIB Media Network.
Welcome back to the National Football Show with your boy Dan Sileo. God, we're just loaded, man, over the next couple of weeks and where we come from. So many people jumping aboard. Kyle Whittingham, the head football coach of the Utah Utes, will join us here in a second, and we'll get his thoughts on the upcoming 2021 season and also the Pac-12. I can't wait for college football this year. You know, the NFL got away with not having fans in the stands. It was an odd look at first. Okay, it was. And remember, I've been telling you that the NFL, they make the majority of their money when it comes to their television packages. I'm not saying that college football doesn't make their money also. When it comes to TV, Fox and CBS pump a ton of money. ESPN puts around $800 million into college football each and every single year. So don't think that we're not talking about the networks making a boatload of money when it comes to college football. However, it didn't seem that odd when I didn't see a boatload of fans. And, you know, the NFL dealing with it, it seemed okay. Look, I think it's odd not ever having any fans at a sporting event, period. Okay? But I think the one thing with college football, man, because of the pageantry, because of the student body, because of the fans that you have on campus, because of what some of these institutions really mean to these communities. I mean, the majority of these great colleges, you know what? They're all in those areas of the nation where college towns, that's pretty much it. When you're talking like Utah, or you're talking Oregon, or you're talking in the Southeastern Conference like Alabama, or in Baton Rouge with LSU, very few of these big-time programs. Look at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's in Norman, Oklahoma. If you've ever been there, I mean, there's nothing there but the same-looking houses all down the roads. And the only thing they really have, like in Lincoln, Nebraska, too, many of these colleges are civic pride areas, and they represent communities. And I think it's really great. And I really thought last year, college football, not having the fans in the stands, man, was that just a look where you just went like this? They need to get those people back. And now with the CDC coming out yesterday and saying that you don't have to wear a mask if you've been vaccinated outside, that you're going to be able to go and be outside without wearing a mask. And then now they're even saying that if you've been vaccinated, you can go indoors when it comes to restaurants, which means this, concessions. Fans are going to be able to go at stadiums, and they're going to be able to walk up and get their favorite beer or their favorite soda. They're going to be able to buy all the great, like, you know, pom-poms and all the gear that go with going to a college football game. I say this to everyone. Going to a college football game is truly one of the greatest things on the planet, and I so can't wait for the upcoming year. And right now we have our friend Kyle Whittingham, the head football coach of Utah. Now, you have to understand something, folks. Kyle likes either to go to Hawaii, he likes to get away for a little bit, and he loves to get ready for the upcoming 2021 season. Coach, is that what we're doing now, man? We're kind of relaxing?
Well, a little bit. We're gearing up for this new recruiting that's going to open up. Not new recruiting, but when recruiting opens up on June 1st, we've got a full month of official visits, unofficial visits, camps, and that type of thing during June. So it's going to get hot and heavy here in a couple weeks.
Coach, I had Mario Cristobal on a couple of shows ago, and I was asking him about recruiting and how much it's really impacted because of COVID-19. Good or bad, you had to like do some extra type of recruiting to get kids to come and look at your program. How has it affected the Pac-12 and your program most notably? Well,
it was certainly different, and we had utilized Zoom and the things that were available to us, and the big difference is we signed an entire recruiting class with really never having met them in person, and had a chance to meet their families and that type of thing, other than through the Zoom and phone calls. And so that was very unique. The net result, I guess time will tell. You know, it's you can't really judge a recruiting class till a couple of years later as to what you got. And so check back with me in a couple of years, and I'll have a good answer on that part of it.
You know, Coach Johnson used to say this. Yeah, okay, that looks good. And okay, guy runs a 4.8. He's 280 pounds. Great, Sileo. Let me look you in the eye. And I want to look at him. So this was me being recruited by him. And so Zoom, I can't think Coach Johnson's going to go around Zooming people and not getting a feel for the kid. I wonder how much of that dynamic, Coach, worries you a little bit. And I'm not saying that these kids are not 5-star, 4-star kids from rivals, but, man, that's an element that has to kill a coach like yourself, where you want to look at a kid, because I've met your kids before, and you want to know them a little bit more than a Zoom call.
Absolutely, and that's been the toughest part of it. And I give a lot of credit to our assistant coaches for really vetting the recruits out and doing their homework. And you know, by all indications, we've got a great class, and we're thrilled with them. But we'll see. You know, like I said, in 2 years how things pan out. We were fortunate enough to have almost half the class show up in January. We had a bunch of guys that were early enrollees, which is a big positive and really helps your cause. And so the other ones will trickle in here starting in a couple of weeks, and we should have them, you know, the 100% of the class here by first week of June.
You got a brand new commissioner now, the Pac-12, George Klialkoff from the MGM. How important was it? And I'm not throwing any shade on Larry. Larry had a very tough task, and I've always told you this, and I've told Mario, and I've told just about every Pac-12 coach, the 7:30 West Coast games are a killer for the conference, and he had such a tough putt. How do you think this change will affect the Pac-12 moving forward when it comes to more exposure for the programs that are in there in that conference?
That's a great question. I don't know the new commissioner. I haven't talked to him or don't really have any background on him other than what I've read. And so that remains to be seen as well. But you're right, those late kickoffs, and some are, you know, as late as 8 Pacific time, I believe. And so we're, you know, that's, you know, going back on the East Coast and it's 11 o'clock when you're kicking off. That's kind of a tough market. But you know, I control what you can control. That's always been my philosophy, and we love to kick off as early as possible. We had a couple 10 a.m. kickoff games in the last couple of years that were just great for us and our kids, and so we'll see what happens. But I know there's a lot of buzz with the new commissioner, and he's got a lot of background and strengths that appear to be exactly what we need for our conference.
Yeah, he's in the entertainment industry,
right.
And I think that's going to be so important because, Coach, I've told all you coaches in the Pac-12, there's nothing wrong with the conference. It's just the time that it's slotted on when it comes to television, and because TV and social media is such a major part when it comes to promoting things nowadays. You know, you see a kid like Christian McCaffrey at Stanford a couple of years ago, who I actually voted for the Heisman. I mean, the people on the East Coast, they're snoozing and cutting Z's, and they're not really seeing how great that kid is. Now he's the highest paid running back in the National Football League, and he's a centerpiece. So, again, I think the entertainment factor is going to be – I'm not saying it's gimmicky, Coach. I'm just saying that's got to be an asset for you guys.
It has to be, and hopefully we'll make some progress in that regard. And I don't think the rest of the country also understands and realizes how balanced the Pac-12 is. It's not a top-heavy conference. You know, 1 through 12, it's pretty darn good football every single week, and so that's another reason why we may not get some of the notoriety and the due that we're deserving of because of just beating each other up every week. It's cannibalization, and it's tough to come out of this league undefeated.
Coach, I got to say this too, man, getting fans back in your stadium again and, you know, going around to all those great stadiums in the Pac-12, that's got to be something that your players and even the coaches have to be looking forward to.
Very much so. We're knocking on wood that hopefully we can fill our stadium. We just put a beautiful addition into our stadium, and we bowled it in. It was had a little bit of an open end, but we've got that bowled in now and added another 5,000 or 6,000 seats, and it's going to be a whole new experience for our fans. And so we're hoping that we get the green light to go ahead and fill that up, because we've had up until last year when we weren't allowed to have any fans, we've had over 10 years of straight sellouts. So very good support from our community.
You know, Coach, I saw something, and I was so impressed with what you and your AD did. I mean, you guys took pay cuts, then you took no money because you guys were wanting to make sure that the other programs that were at the school did not suffer. We see that at Stanford a little bit, where they had to cut numerous programs because COVID-19 had really injured a lot of the other programs, non-generating revenue programs. So, you know, and as I said to you before meeting you a couple of years ago in Los Angeles, there's just like a family atmosphere around your program. And I would think maybe even around your institution and all the programs that are there in Utah. You guys are all in this together, aren't you? It's not just the football and basketball programs. It's everything encompassing of what that school brings. I
would have to agree with that statement. And we're all pulling in the same direction at Utah. We got a bunch of unselfish team players in the department, and it starts at the top with Mr. Harlan and trickles down, and we're doing what we can do, doing everything we can do to help the cause.
Coach, this coming up 2021 year, what kind of team are we looking at going into, the fall camp? What are your expectations on this football team?
Well, I think we're flying a little under the radar right now, which is just how we like it. We're not getting a lot of notoriety or pub with the national media, and so that's where we seem to function best, is when we got that chip on our shoulder and nobody's really giving us the credit that we feel we deserve. And I really believe we got a chance to be pretty good this year. We've got a couple question marks that we have to get solidified through fall camp and through the portal. We got to make a few additions to the roster through the portal, but if we can get those things ironed out, like I said, we got a chance to be very competitive.
Coach, I was talking with Manny Diaz of Miami a couple weeks ago about the portal, and I've compared it to free agency in the NFL. Mm-hmm. That, and I'm a transfer kid. I transferred from Maryland, and I went to Miami, and I won an ACC championship my freshman year with Boomer and those guys, and then I won a national championship at Miami with Jimmy Johnson. And so to me, I used that kind of – there was a coaching change in the position of the defensive line. There was a conflict there, so I went down to Miami. And how do you look at this portal thing? Do you look at it the same way I do? Like, hey, not everybody's going to be happy at some place. You could be 10 deep at one position at one college, and you want to go somewhere else so you can play. How do you look at it?
Exactly the same way. It is free agency in college football. You have your kids that you recruit from high school, the draft, so to speak. That's your draft choices, and then you supplement that with the free agents that are in the portal. The portal cuts both ways. You're going to lose some guys. You're going to gain some guys. I believe that we've done as good a job as we possibly could have utilizing the portal, and I think our net result at Utah has been on the plus side of the ledger. And so we'll see how things develop. But with this portal situation in the free agency that we're calling it, you spend a lot of time recruiting your own players, that are on your roster and making sure that they're in a good place mentally and you've got good communication with them.
Coach, two last questions for you. The playoff format. It just and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I've talked to Bill Hancock about this thing numerous times. It just seems to me that it's rigged. And what I mean by rigged is if you're not on a Power 5 conference, there's absolutely no chance. And even if you're in some of these Power 5 conferences, there just seems to be Tiffany programs that the committee looks at. And I make the point to you, the last non-Power 5 team to win a national championship was the '85 BYU Cougars. No other team has played for a national championship that's not been considered a Power 5 team. And so, we're talking 35 plus years. How do you see this system, and do you think it's fair to everyone?
No, I don't. I see this very similar to what you're talking about. And I think the only solution is expansion. And I think that's going to happen. It's not if, it's when. And hopefully it goes to 16 teams. To me is the ideal, or at least for the short term. And now I know there's going to the bowl games and the bowl pitch, just the bowl season and the whole thing that comes with the bowls is going to take a little bit of a hit, but that's where everything is gravitating towards anyways. And so I think we need to expand, and like I said, sooner rather than later, and get more accessibility. That's really the key, is the accessibility for more teams to get involved with it.
Final question for you, Coach. Why have you remained your pretty much entire head coaching career at Utah? I know you've had opportunities to coach other places. I know you've been offered other opportunities. Why Utah for you and such a long tenure with this place?
Well, I don't know if you've ever been to Salt Lake City, but it's a great place to live. I love to ski. I love to golf. Love the University of Utah. I've been there for 25 plus years now, and my family's there. I've never been a grass is always greener guy, and it's just been a blessing for us to be able to be in one place for all these years. And it's not the typical coach's path, for sure. Guys that have been in this profession 25 years typically have had a dozen different stops, and so I feel very fortunate to be able to made my career at Utah, and hopefully that's where I finish. I'm getting older now, and so I think that's probably what's going to happen. But a few things. Salt Lake's a great spot. My family's here. The university is phenomenal, and it's just a great community. So.
And Coach, I would imagine for you, you built it. This is This is like, all the benchmark guys who build these programs, and what Saban has built in Alabama and what Dabo's now building, extending on what they're doing at Clemson. I mean, you've got to be awful proud. I mean, how many conference changes have you had since you've been there too? And now you're in the Pac-12. I mean, this is something you built. I would imagine that's near and dear to you.
It is, and it's been a fun ride, and just trying to continue to build on what Coach McBride started way back in the 90s, the late 80s, 90s, and Coach Meyer, of course, was there for a couple of years, and just trying to continue to progress and take the program to higher levels. And it was a big challenge when we entered the Pac-12. That was a benchmark for our program, and we feel like we've got a lot of traction right now. We've been getting better and more competitive every single year, and we think the future is bright here. So we'll find out.
This is the U though, right?
Right here, sir.
Hey, Coach, thank you so much, man. I can't wait to talk to you during the regular season. Go get them, man. I love your guys.
Okay, Dan. Appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
You got it. That is Kyle Whittingham, the head football coach of the Utah Utes. You see how he did his U? He does it like this. That's Utah. That's the Hurricanes. We'll take a brief timeout. You keep it right here on the National Football Show.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods, your vacation, your way.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
The light from a star can take millions of years to reach Earth. So when you look at a star, you're looking back in time. But I see the future. I see exploration and courage. I see my country finding new horizons out there. And I see giant leaps making a comeback. I see myself. The future is where I'll make history.
D-A-T-L-E-S-E-O! Jody Mack, the legendary sports talker, joins forces with NFL insider John McMullen. Start your morning with Johnny Mack and Jody Mack across the JAKIB Media Network.
Welcome back to the National Football Show with your boy Dan Sileo. Great to catch up with Kyle Whittingham. He's been at Utah now 25 years. Built himself a hell of a program. By the way, in hour 2, Warren Sapp, the Pro Football Hall of Famer, will join us in that hour. We'll talk some NFL with him. I do want to get back into this Deshaun Watson scenario that we have in Houston. You know, it's really a peculiar one for the league to be in, because you have to understand something. The league is always looking out for one thing. You know what that is? Protecting the shield. And when you have a player with this type of money, this type of exposure, I'm talking Deshaun Watson, that's in the public eye for not the right reasons. These sexual issues and the masseuse issues and the sexual crimes that they're saying that he may have committed, or how about this, the behavior issues, the sexual behavior issues, that to me is something that the league, I'm really happy that they're doing this. They're staying back. They're investigating. They're working along with the Texans, Tony Busby, who's the attorney representing these 22 women, and also with Rusty Hardin. So the league here is doing something that they have always ended up getting themselves in trouble with. You know what that is? Getting out in front of it. The league is doing the right thing by doing this. They're staying behind it. Stay behind it. Look, if this was a defensive tackle, that guy would be on the commissioner's list until he could prove his innocence. And the NFL Players Association would have to go and fight for his rights. But right now, the NFLPA and the NFL are doing this. They're holding back because I think one thing is saving Deshaun here. These are not criminal complaints that have been filed against him. These are civil complaints against him. What does that mean? Well, for my perspective as a media guy, I look at it like this. Okay, so they're going after the money first. Rusty Hardin, the attorney for Deshaun Watson, is saying that, you know, they've come to us numerous times, Tony Busby representing those women, and they've wanted to settle. Well, at the end of the day, guess what? Okay, according to Tony Busby today, that's not true. Well, now we're starting to see a little bit more public back and forth again like we did a couple weeks ago. There's some more ping-ponging going on here. And we're starting to see people, because Busby also came out and said some of the women feel a little bit uncomfortable with some of the questions that are being asked to them by the NFL lead investigators. You see, remember something. The National Football League, and what this guy Tony Busby, the attorney for these women, doesn't get, they don't give a crap about Deshaun Watson if he's guilty. If he's innocent, though, they completely care about him. And they're going to ask hard questions. And if you don't like that, then quite frankly, take him to court, not on civil action, but on a criminal action. That's why I have defended Deshaun. Until I see criminal crimes being filed against the quarterback and the commissioner has come out and put him on the exempt list, we are talking about somebody going after money. Now, as a media person, and you have to have some responsibility when it comes to the alleged victims, because what you don't want to do is this. You don't want to dismiss anything that someone says when we're talking about sexual crimes. And you want to make sure you're doing the most important thing possible, looking into those crimes to defend those women's rights. And you know what else you're doing if you're the NFL? What do we always talk about with the National Football League and what a major cash register it is when it comes to being a sports league? 48% of the NFL fan base are women. Okay? They're women. You don't want to – who do you think buys all the pillowcases, the bed coverings, the jerseys, the jackets, the hats? Who do you think's out buying the NFL bicycles for Christmas? It's the women. They're out shopping like this. And there's no way they're going to be pushing or facilitating what a sport is supposed to represent when you're not looking out for the most important thing you possibly can be looking out for, and that is women. You can't have – look, I say this to everyone about the NFL player, okay? You don't have to be the greatest teammate on the planet, but you got to be a good dude, okay? That means not beating up animals, not beating up women, not beating up children. You stay away from those three things. Hell, get this. Guys smoking weed or doing some other drug, the public is going to forgive you on that. Hell, they may even forgive you if you're robbing a bank. But they're not going to forgive you if you're beating women up. They're not going to forgive you if you're raping women. They're not going to forgive you if you're beating a kid up. They're not. That league has to stand for one thing. They've got to be good dudes. They don't, they'll fall for everything. And the American fans know this. That's why, okay, let's go back to that Ray Rice thing, and let's kind of put it into perspective on how and what the NFL learned from that and the way they learned from that whole case. And see if we're better today with the league. Remember how the NFL jumped out in front and put a 2-game suspension? And you were like this. Then the video came out, and everyone went, a 2-game suspension. You can smoke Mary Jane, and you can get a 4-game suspension. But if you beat her, you only get a 2-game? Everybody was outraged. You got a 4-game suspension for smoking pot back then when the Ray Rice story broke. And you got 2 games for beating a woman and knocking her out in an elevator. Hey, and for the record, I'll tell you what my opinion is of Ray Rice here in a minute. Again, I'm tying it into the Deshaun Watson case here. So they jumped out in front. Man, they wet all over themselves in that case. Ray never played again because of the mishandling of the NFL Players Association, his obvious own actions, and the league's actions. Fast forward to today. Do you know what Ray Rice and that woman are doing today? They are living a wonderful life. They've overcome that moment. He is now a spokesman for the NFL, and he goes around to rookie symposiums, and he says, don't do this. And here was a guy that had an impeccable when it came to his character in that community of Baltimore. He was one of the most revered guys in Baltimore, was Ray Rice. Just absolutely impeccable. One horrific moment that stained his life, never overcame it. However, guess what I think of Ray Rice today? Ray Rice is married to that woman. They have children. They have a wonderful life. And if she forgives him, I forgive him. He didn't need football. Ray was already a great man with a horrific moment. Horrific moment. The video speaks for itself. And during that time, the NFL they wet all over themselves. So with this Deshaun Watson case, what they're doing here, what I'm liking, they're sitting back, getting all the intel in. They're not going public in any way. You've not seen Troy Vincent at all, at any way. He's the VP of obviously like player issues. He's not public in any way. Derek Brooks is also behind the scene involved with this. The Hall of Fame linebacker. He also works in that department. And remember something. Derek Brooks is not going to be on the side of the NFL. Derek Brooks is going to be on the side of what's right. That's why Derek Brooks is in that position. So all these things are going on behind the scenes. And I think the way the league has handled this has been spectacular. I really do. All right, let's move on from that. So I'm now starting to get, I said this a couple days ago about this Aaron Rodgers story. And I was like, I don't see him ever playing ever again in Green Bay. But you know what's happened over the last 3 days, 4 days, maybe even all week here? Aaron Rodgers, was it John Kuhn, the fullback, came out? This is repairable. Okay, that's a guy who talks to Aaron Rodgers every day. Then I started hearing other players that had played with Aaron Rodgers. Then I'm hearing other teammates. Then I'm starting to hear other people. Well, there's only one place he's getting that from. Because you don't think Aaron Rodgers is one of those guys that has sleepovers and sitting around going, hey, guys, how you doing? We're trying. No, man. This guy's calculated in every single thing that he does. He threw out the whole thing with, Jeopardy wanting to be the lifetime host, or he wanted to be the permanent host for Jeopardy, taking over for Alex Trebek. Okay. He threw that out there. Then he realized it. Even though it's a $15 million a year job, he's Aaron Rodgers, the freaking quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. Okay. He's the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. And you easily have another 3 years. Now, this is what I'm reporting here today. There's a report out there that, and a couple of us know about it, there's a $45 million deal per year for 3 years on the table for Aaron Rodgers to sign. I don't know what the signing bonus is, but I do know that there's a $45 million per deal on the table. In theory, they want to make him the highest paid player in the game. He's a reigning MVP. He's 26-6 over the last 2 years. He's been to 2 conference championship games. He is a guy that has worked with Matt LaFleur, the brand new head coach of the Packers. And personally, if it's not for a debacle on defense with a player giving up that 7 points going in to halftime in the NFC title game and a poor decision by Matt LaFleur himself in the fourth quarter of that game in the NFC title game, you're probably looking at Aaron Rodgers playing in that Super Bowl. And I would say this, with all the issues that the Chiefs had, Aaron Rodgers probably has his 2nd Super Bowl title. So just think about that for a minute. 2 plays put us here. And, you know, I was asked this question, do you really think it's got anything to do with Jordan Love? You know, I think it probably does a little. But see, I think it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, putting something on a guy's back until it breaks. The play calling that I just mentioned from last year's game. The going out and drafting and moving up to get a quarterback adds on. The inability to be able to put players on the roster like you see going on in Tampa. And that's what he wants. He wants the Packers because Aaron Rodgers is he's running out of time. You know, when John Elway was at the end of his career, you know the greatest thing that ever happened to John Elway, or we would be looking at John Elway in a completely different light. You know the greatest thing ever happened to him? Terrell Davis parachuted in out of nowhere. Remember, Terrell Davis wasn't a first-round draft choice. He was like a 6th rounder or something that Mike Shanahan drafted, and he was almost going to be cut. They were over in Japan. Guy made a couple special team plays. Mike Shanahan decided to keep him. He told his family he thought he was going to get cut that Monday when they made the trip back from Japan. This is Terrell Davis, the Hall of Fame guy, 2,000-yard rushing, you know, all that stuff. And all of a sudden, they put him in the backfield, and John Elway's history was rewritten with those 2 titles and a Super Bowl MVP. One move, one tiny move like that, one personnel decision. He was just a camper. You know what campers are? They're dudes that kind of hold like the tackling dummies. They're guys that really are not going to make the team. And if they which, by the way, his first year he did. The only reason that he got put into the starting lineup is because they started getting numerous injuries at the running back position. And they started doing that, and they put him in. That's the only way that dynamic worked out. And like I said, it completely changed how we view John Elway because of those 2 Super Bowl championships and how he played in the postseason, right? Falcons they beat, and they beat the Packers in San Diego. Or we'd be talking a whole different thing. That's what Aaron Rodgers is seeing now. He has been in Green Bay for 16 years. You know, since he won that Super Bowl 10 years ago, he's 7-8 in the postseason. I don't know. How do you, when you look at that and you go, okay, well, he's one of the greatest throwers in the history of the football. And by the way, for the record, I think we saw a little bit of that with the dirt getting kicked up in Seattle too with Russell Wilson. They basically did the same thing there. I mean, he sees it too. Okay, I've been to 2 Super Bowls. Man, that's years ago now. Are we ever going to get back to that position? Because remember something, when we had Howard Eskin on with us yesterday, Howard's dead on about one important factor. When you start paying the quarterback between $35 and $42 million, you're starting to take and you're starting to cut into your cap and how you build your football team. Howard's comments were dead on. We'll hit on him probably here in a couple minutes here, but he's exactly right. That's why these quarterbacks, once they start getting north of like 35, you start to look at your mortality, and then you start to look at your resume, and you go, man, I really had a lot of great regular season games. You know, Russell Wilson has never had a losing season since he's been a starting quarterback of Seattle. But, man, you know, these guys are starting to push these organizations. All right, we'll hit on that. We'll reset. Warren Sapp's going to join us in hour 2. You keep it right here on the National Football Show.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
The light from a star can take millions of years to reach Earth. So when you look at a star, you're looking back in time. But I see the future. I see exploration and courage. I see my country finding new horizons out there. And I see giant leaps making a comeback. I see myself. The future is where I'll make history.
D-A-T-L-E-S-E-O! Jody Mack, the legendary sports talker, joins forces with NFL insider John McMullen. Start your morning with Johnny Mack and Jody Mack across the JAKIB Media Network.
Number 2, Dan Sileo right here on the JAKIB Media channel here on the National Football Show. It's great talking to Kyle Whittingham in the last hour, and we are going to effort our friend in this hour, Warren Sapp, the Pro Football Hall of Famer, and get the world according to Warren and see what he says about the National Football League. That'll be in this hour. You know, I was just talking to Kyle about the brand new commissioner that has been hired and taking over for Larry Scott, George Kolikoff, and he's taken over, and he comes from the MGM. And the reason that all of these schools out west wanted to go with somebody in the entertainment industry and working with the MGM and putting all those great shows on at the MGM Grand or the New York, or the Bellagio was because these people are professionals. You see, sports today, whether it's at the collegiate level or whether it's at the professional level, you have to understand this is a major business. We're not talking about any longer coaches making $50,000 a year. We're talking about coaches making 100% of those numbers. I mean, you got a guy in Nick Saban down in Alabama that's making $11 million a year. And I tell everyone, you know, some of these college football coaches that are at some of these premier places, why would you ever go to the National Football League? Why would you ever want to leave a place like Norman, Oklahoma, where you're making $7.5 million a year and you're not paying any taxes on it? They fly you around in a corporate jet. They pay for your home. I mean, Nick Saban's home has been paid for. They bought him another one. I mean, there's nothing he pays for. Why would Saban want to go and take a job in the National Football League to have to listen to a GM, to have to listen to an owner, to have to listen to people complaining? What Saban has done at Alabama, he has built himself an absolute cash register. I mean, watch this. Who's the favorite to win the national championship again? It's Alabama. Alabama has done something that we did back in the day when we were at the University of Miami. And the reason we were able to do all those things that we were able to do at Miami is because we had coaches who knew personnel. We had coaches, you know, I'll say this to you. Do I think Nick Saban's the greatest coach of all time? I don't know. His schemes, I don't know, okay? I think schemes are overrated. I think the guy who knows how to communicate and recruit in college football, those are the guys that are always going to win. Okay? If you have the best player, you can draw up the greatest plays on the planet. That doesn't necessarily mean that's going to get you a win on Sundays or Saturdays. You got to have the people in the room. I mean, the quarterback position in the National Football League tells you that just plain and simple. You don't have to have the quarterback at the college level, and that's maybe the difference between the college game and the NFL game. See, you have to understand something. In the NFL game, if you don't have that guy, you ain't winning. In the college game, you really don't have to have the greatest quarterback in the country to win a national title or to be in the conversation for a national title, right? He's got to be good. He doesn't have to be spectacular. He doesn't have to be a first-round draft choice. But what he has to be is somebody that gets the ball to his star players and you recruit your ass off. I tell people, and I swear to you, I tell people all the time, man, dude, man, this guy's made $11 million a year. Why on earth would he ever, and I'm talking Saban, ever want to leave and go and ever play it out in the National Football League? It just doesn't make sense. All right, let's transition into this. I just got through talking a little bit about something that Howard Eskin from WIP yesterday brought up, and I was thinking about it all night and what he was saying, and I thought he was right on a point when we're talking about the quarterbacks today in the National Football League that make the money that they make. Look, I think it's great. I'm never going to be one of those guys that ever tells you, these guys are making, because then you're like, oh, dude, get off my lawn, dude, man. Those guys are just stupid, right? They're just, I mean, why? I mean, you know, oh, back in the day, you know, we walked 758,000 miles. And you're like, dude, really? Give me a break. Okay? But what you do have to take, what Howard said yesterday, is this. When these organizations get into a position where you have to start paying these guys, the exorbitant amount of money that is now out there on the market value. Let's just take a look at the Cowboys, for instance. The Cowboys, and he's right, the Cowboys are going to pay 40, and I want you to add this up in your head here. Okay, so now they're going to pay $42 million a year for Dak Prescott. They're paying 20 for Ezekiel Elliott. We're talking 62. I'm going to round up the number for Amari Cooper. He's making 20. That's $82 million of your $183 million salary cap. You got $100 million left to fill a 53-man roster out with. 3 guys have $82 million wrapped up for the Dallas Cowboys. Think of that for a minute. $82 million. Then now what you do is you have to go into the O-line. Every one of those guys that are on the Dallas Cowboys offensive line, those guys all average across the board $5 million. So you're talking another $25 million. So before you even get out of the offensive huddle, I've even got out into the backups. Before you even get out of the offense, okay, you're talking already, you've got $100 million on your offensive side of the football of your $182 million salary cap. Cap came down this year because of COVID, right? And this is kind of what Howard was talking about. The Dallas Cowboys have $100 million in their salary cap on one side of the ball. You know why the Cowboys are always 500? Yeah, they can move the chains. Yeah, they've got offensive power. Yeah, but watch this. So now you got to go on the other side of the defense. You gave Jalen Smith that gigantic money. He's overrated. You gave numerous guys on that team overrated. Your front four, they average $4 million. $3 million bucks probably. There's $12 million. You're at $120 million now of your salary cap. You haven't even got to the linebackers. You haven't even got to the secondary. And then you're not even in special teams. What about those guys? Special teams is a major part. Take a look at how important it is for a team like New England. How many Super Bowls did they win kicking field goals, Brady getting him down inside the red zone, or Brady getting him down inside scoring range so that Vinatieri or somebody could make a kick for them to win a Super Bowl? How many times did they do that? How many times were the Patriots, watch this, they may not have always been number one in defense, but you know what they were always number one at? Red zone offense and special teams. That's how they ended up going on and winning a boatload of football games, and how they were productive all the time is because they were balanced in the cap. And who made that affordable when it came to being balanced in the cap? The quarterback. New England's secret sauce was Brady. And it's not just his play. He's now doing the same magic and doing the same stuff in Tampa. He just signed that new contract, that 2-year contract extension with the Buccaneers. And Jason Light came out and asked him, hey, we've got to re-sign. How do you think they brought all 22 of those guys back? And in the process, they gave Brady a boatload of money. And this year, he's prorated it out. Like in his 3rd year on the option, he's not going to make anything. They're giving him the money now. Brady's going to make like $70 million this year in signing bonus and his base salary. But they did that because they prorated it out. And because of this new collective bargaining agreement, they can fix the numbers real well. And that's what they did. Brady was always willing to work with the organization instead of being adversarial with the organization. When you get a quarterback that will work with you, and you get a quarterback that's going to deal with you in how you deal with your cap, man, that's the magic part of this. Brady went back. They were able to sign all 22 guys plus Antonio Brown. It was only because the quarterback restructured his deal. If Tom didn't do that, the Bucs would have lost half those guys. That football team would be in a conversation with a handful of teams to win the NFC. Now, because Brady invested in himself, got to remember that. When quarterbacks invest in themselves like that, that's when you know you have your quarterback that's going to be part of the business plan. And this is all, and I say this to you, I think Aaron Rodgers would be willing to restructure his deal. He's got a $45 million a year deal on the table right now. And guess what? He's not even picked it up because immediately that's already structured inside that deal. The Packers want him to restructure it the day he signs it. Okay, why should he? You went out and drafted a quarterback last year. You're doing all these stupid, hokey things around me. You're saying all this dumb thing publicly around me. Why aren't we sitting here constructing something that can help us and we're going to be mutually beneficial to both of us? This is how you win today. You've got to see, the NFL is brilliant in how they operate. They are more concerned about the teams that are not very good than they are the teams that are good. Their actions speak to it. Usually the teams that are the sorriest get the top draft picks. Usually the teams that are the sorriest get the easiest schedules. They don't want you to wallow in misery. And then when you get people that work with an organization, the quarterback position is now part of management. See, NFL owners in the past never wanted that and never cared. Did you hear what Jason Light did to Tom Brady prior to the NFL draft? So he went to Brady and said, Tom, we're thinking of drafting Kyle, and we're thinking of drafting him, and we're going to think of, taking him, the quarterback from Florida, and we're going to draft him potentially in the 2nd round. Do you have a problem with that? No, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's great. Then let Tom know that he's not making personnel decisions, okay? But what he's doing is, they're making him part of the plan. That's all Brady ever wanted in New England. And at the end, they stopped asking his opinion. When they got that N'Keal Harry kid from ASU, Brady was like, why? The guy's slow off the line of scrimmage. You never even asked him his opinion. And when Tom saw that he could never get separation off the line of scrimmage, that was the first time that Bill Belichick had ever drafted a guy in the first round from the wide receiver position. You know what's funny? The last 2 drafts, Bill Belichick never drafted a wide receiver in the first round, and he never drafted a quarterback in his entire time as being a head coach in the first round. His last 2 draft choices, he's now officially gambling. Okay? They thought they were getting Tom Brady some help when they got that kid from Arizona State. He's not very good. And personally, I think he'll be out of the league next year. He can't get separation. They tried to bring up Mohamed Sanu from Atlanta because he could look like he was going to be a possession-type wideout. They gave up a 3rd-round draft choice for him. Think of that for a minute. They went around trying to find a guy for Brady, but they never were able to land the guy because the majority of the people that Brady had success with were who? Guys Brady made in practice. The Julian Edelmans. Nobody went out and found him. He fell on them. Same thing with Wes Welker. Remember when Wes Welker was in Miami? He was a special teams dude. He was not a wide receiver down in Miami. Who the hell was throwing him the ball? I don't remember him making significant catches. He may have, but I don't remember him making significant catches in Miami. But when he got to New England, that guy was a beast. 100-catch seasons. Brady had him in the slot. This guy was a nobody. And that was the magic of New England. They didn't have to pay a lot of guys. Brady reduced his salary. They went out and got offensive linemen. They invested in themselves, and that's how that football team ended up winning all those championships. So yesterday when Howard Eskin's like, hey, the Cowboys are going to be in purgatory here, I think he's going to be a little right in this. Now, potentially next year, the salary cap goes up to $225 million. And that's kind of what was projected that it was supposed to go up this year. So they'll be still a little bit behind next year, but that number will go up. So they're going to be able to escalate some of that money out if Dak's willing, which I'm hearing he is willing to renegotiate these contracts because he's going to have to renegotiate these contracts. If he's going to want to be on a winning football team, you're going to have to renegotiate these contracts every single year. If you don't, you're not going to win. I'll tell you, the guy who we had him on a couple days ago, and I wish I had brought this up so you guys could have heard this. But, you know, one of the greatest contracts of all time was Warren Moon's. And, hey, for the record, guess who constructed the $500 million contract for Patrick Mahomes? It was Lee Steinberg, the same guy. And what he did in that contract, he gave the Chiefs, and we had Bill Moss on with us a couple days ago, part of the broadcast team for the Chiefs. You know, Patrick gave Kansas City maneuver room for them to be able to go on the off-ramp and to be able to go here or there when it came to restructuring contracts. So they gave them. Lee constructed that deal. Lee also constructed one of the greatest contracts of all time when it came to Warren Moon. He was never the highest paid quarterback in the history of the league during his time. You got to remember during that time, do you remember who was in the league? You had John Elway, you had Dan Marino, you had Joe Montana. You had some of the greatest players in the history of the game that were playing during that time. But Warren Moon never at any time in his entire career was the highest paid player. And you're talking about a guy who was a numerous Pro Bowler all the time. But you know what he did? He made it and it put a clause in his contract that Warren Moon would never be paid lower than the 3rd highest paid quarterback, which meant what? Well, every year his contract was renegotiated because Marino's contract would come up. Then the next year Elway's contract would come up. Well, you also had a restructured contract for Warren because if Warren was outside of the top 3, Warren's contract was always in the top 3. Always. Okay? All right. It's really pretty remarkable to think on what's going on here, man, when it comes to that. So, yeah, restructuring the contract is going to be one of the most important things if we're going to go and we're going to do anything. And, you know, when you're talking about building your football team. All right. This week, you're going to see pretty much all the teams that are going to be in rookie minicamp. Now, how important is rookie minicamp this week? Well, rookie minicamp does this. Rookie minicamp is important because now as a rookie, I'll tell you my minicamps, man, I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea what to expect, okay? No idea. And when we were back in those times, they brought you in, they gave you your playbook. And you know what these guys are going to do this week? They are going to give you sheets and sheets and sheets of stuff for you to work on. And what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to do every single thing possible that they can possibly do to overload you mentally. Because what they're going to try to find out is they're going to try to find out how much intel you can take in and how much that you can absorb that intel. They're going to throw 50 plays at you at one time. You're going to think things are being peppered at you, constantly being peppered at you. And you're going to be hearing all this stuff. You're going to be getting all this information. You're going to be getting all of it. And you're going to be sitting here with your head on a swivel going like this. Jesus Christ, man. What the hell was that play? They said wide tackle 6, it crashed. What is he talking about here? I have no idea. So these camps are really for the coaches to see, okay? They're for the coaches to see how much you can process that information. They're going to give you as much as the playbook as possible. There's going to be some guys, and they're going to know what your comprehension ability is. Well, we're not going to give this guy too much to eat on right away. I don't want to put him in a bad position to lose. This guy here, we can really feed him. We could probably give him a lot more intel and a lot more plays to play. In this process, they're going to find that out. And they're going to find out, okay, which guys that they can really go into the 2021 season with that are going to have a better understanding of what's being asked of them. All right. I do want to hit on this too. Brady's injury, that knee injury that he had, that surgery, looks like it was a little bit more, how about this? It was a little bit more sustaining to his health than what people reported initially. We'll hit on that. You keep it right here on the National Football Show.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
The light from a star can take millions of years to reach Earth. So when you look at a star, you're looking back in time. But I see the future. I see exploration and courage. I see my country finding new horizons out there. And I see giant leaps making a comeback. I see myself. The future is where I'll make history.
D-A-T-L-E-S-E-O! Jody Mack, the legendary sports talker, joins forces with NFL insider John McMullen. Start your morning with Johnny Mack and Jody Mack across the JAKIB Media Network.
Welcome back to the National Football Show with your boy Dan Sileo. We're going to try to F with our friend Warren Sapp in this hour. Hopefully we can catch up with our friend, Pro Football Hall of Famer. God, I love listening to him. And by the way, I say this to you, and when I watch Sapp, what I love about his Instagram and his Twitter page, you see him enjoying life now. And, there's so many NFL guys that, they get away from the game and they don't enjoy life because that's what really defined them. I tell people the toughest transition that you can ever make is leaving the game and going and doing something else, no matter what it is, too. Okay, because your first love is football. It really is. It's your passion and your love that you have. It's like, it's when it's taken away from you like that, and it's not so much the Sundays or the Saturdays that you get a chance to be around your friends and around your teammates. It's more about the journey that you guys go on. I tell people all the time, people always ask me, man, like, what's the thing you miss the most? And it's like, I go back and I do some Zoom conference calls with my friend, and, we'll go back and we'll connect with a bunch of Hurricane guys. And it's like we never, ever in any way ever missed a beat. And like I could talk to Alonzo Highsmith like I talked to Alonzo Highsmith 20 years ago. Or I could talk to Vinny Testaverde or any of Michael Irvin or any of these great teammates of mine like we were just in the room like yesterday. And that's the stuff that you really love about your teammates. And that's the stuff, again, that you really look at, that, what you miss the most about the game is just that stuff there. So, yeah, that's what I love. And you can always get a real true sense when a guy leaves the sport, how he handles himself, like out of the sport, and does he enjoy life? Does he experiencing new things? And I love guys that evolve into something else. I love guys that just move into a different direction in their life and start enjoying it, especially when you're like a Hall of Fame guy or you're somebody that had any kind of significance when it came to making an impact on your organization, on your college, what have you. It is always great being able to do that. So hopefully we'll be able to effort our friend and get him here and talk a little bit with him. I do want to hit on Tom Brady here a little bit. And Tom Brady came out publicly today and basically was saying that, hey, the injury that I had in the surgery that I had on my knee was a little bit more significant than what people were reporting out there. Now, here's this always happens when you get a little older and you are a player that's starting to get up in age, like Tom Brady is. Obviously, he's 43 years of age a year ago now. He'll be 44 going into the 2021 season. Okay? So, end of the day here, make no mistake about it. The one thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that, you have to always know your body. I think one of the most important things is that Tom never has had a day off. He's never had a day off. Okay? Never. It's never had a day off. And that means his off seasons. I was talking with somebody earlier today about that. And I think one of the reasons why Brady has been able to fight Father Time has been the fact that he has stayed conditioned the entire time for the entire 21 years of his career. I think without a doubt, you have to look at it like Brady never has a day off. And that goes back to that notion when we were talking about Bill Belichick, and when Belichick always used to tell people, hey, man, no days off. That's the mentality I think that he has, and why his body has actually been able to stay tuned and in tune is because Tom Brady works his ass off in the offseason. Look, I kind of put it out there back in the day, like, when John Elway, Dan Marino, and all of us were playing back in the 80s and 90s, there was actually like a 3-month window where most of the players would end up getting some time off. And you would go with your family. You would, you would go and, spend some time away from the game. You can't do that any longer because now the NFL is a 24/7. And I would say this to you too, the economics of the game now is also more in front of what these franchises are looking for. When you're spending that kind of money and you're putting that kind of money and resources into a player, you're expecting that player. You see, back in the day, you could come into training camp and you can be out of shape, okay? And you can use the training camp. You could use the OTAs. You could use any of those things to get yourself in shape. That's not how it is today because the training camps are not any longer like they used to be, okay? They're not like they used to be. So what they do is they are making sure constantly that every single player is ready to rock and roll, and you have to be in tune all the time. Plus the fact that you're not able to hit these quarterbacks like you were back in the day. Hey, man, I think that's what's given Tom Brady the longevity to be able to play like he has. And he's kept his body as fine-tuned as you can possibly. Even we're starting to see a little bit with LeBron starting to break down a little bit, right? We're starting to see a little bit with LeBron. And you saw a little bit of that this year where he got old. Tom Brady, quite frankly, is not. I think it's because Brady stays in shape. Brady keeps it going. Brady keeps making sure that his offseason is just as intense as his regular season. All right, we're going to try to effort our friend Warren Sapp. We're going to take a brief timeout. Keep it right here on the National Football Show.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods, your vacation, your way.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
The light from a star can take millions of years to reach Earth. So when you look at a star, you're looking back in time. But I see the future. I see exploration and courage. I see my country finding new horizons out there. And I see giant leaps making a comeback. I see myself. The future is where I'll make history.
Jody Mack, the legendary sports talker, joins forces with NFL insider John McMullen. Start your morning with Johnny Mack and Jody Mack across the JAKIB Media Network.
Welcome back to the National Football Show with your boy Dan Sileo. Had a great week, man. Oh, my God. We so appreciate you guys coming aboard with us and being part of the program. Really has been a fantastic start to the National Football Show, and I can't thank you enough for being part of the program. Thank you so much, man. I mean, look, we got so many people lined up for next week, and a who's who will be all over the show next week. So we're really looking forward to that. All right. You know, I do this every time after we get into a position where we go through the NFL draft and then we go through free agency. And as we're getting ready to come up on June 1 here, and we're getting ready to look at some of the football teams that really made some headway in this offseason. And who are the teams, if you were going to put money on right now, that you would think would be the teams that would be favored to go out and potentially win a Super Bowl? Okay, obviously, you start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You look at the Buccaneers and what they were able to do. We had Bruce Arians, the head football coach, on with us. You can go back and listen to that interview. We had him on a couple days ago, and he was so excited, not only just about the fact that he had his coordinators back, but he was also excited about the fact that he had every single player that we talked about a couple minutes ago back on the football team, all 22 guys, and you bring Antonio Brown back. You have to look at it like this. Is there another team that you would look at and say, what roster's comparable to what the Bucs are bringing back? And especially with what they accomplished a year ago during COVID. I think the Buccaneers are going to be a better football team this year, having gone through that experience, because I would think that experience a year ago where you had to deal with all the uncertainties of COVID-19, getting tested, not getting tested, being away from your family, having situations where you had to go on the road, traveling, and quite frankly, the stuff that was going on with the CDC at the time and not being able to understand what the protocols were, that had to be infuriating for many of the NFL players and for the league itself. I actually will tell you this. I think it's pretty remarkable. Okay? I think it's remarkable that the NFL got through a season a year ago where they were able to go through, and I'm telling you, how they played, how they got all those games in. You know, last year was the first time in NFL history that they played a game on every single day of the week. That's the first time in league history in over 101 years that they did something like that. So the league was doing everything they possibly can. And get this, through all those trials and tribulations, they were able to make it happen and make it through to get to a Super Bowl. And really, I thought they had a banner year. Really started with the draft, I thought the league really had a great 2020. And I know, even during COVID-19, they really did. And so I look at the Buccaneers. I don't know how you don't look. Now, what could stop the Bucs? This injury that we talked about with Tom Brady a little bit, it looks like it was a little bit more significant. And remember something as you get older. The recovery time for many of the players, okay, will always be an issue. See, when you're younger, you have a twisted ankle or you hurt your knee. It takes you a week to come back and you're ready to rock. When you're older and you start to get north of 27, then you start to get like in your 30s, then you're starting to get towards the finish line of your career. What happens is this. The recovery is just not long enough in the offseason for you to play. And that's what stops many of the players from coming back and playing, is because you just don't have the recovery time. So, end of the day here, okay, what they're doing now and what the Bucs are doing, the only thing that could maybe stop that football team would be Tom Brady and an injury to Brady. Because, you know, everything rolls through TB12. TB12 gets it done, TB12 is going to win another Super Bowl. I can't see anybody beating them unless something really happens and you see a rash of injuries. Could you see a rash of injuries? Now, remember something. When you go deep and you go deep into a postseason, that's exactly what happens, man. I mean, you're playing extra months. You're playing with extra practices. Okay? That'll be something to keep. But the Bucs, in my opinion, are the best football team. You know, I look at Seattle and I say, and I guess I look at, most importantly, when I'm talking about teams that I think that are going to be significant when it comes to the upcoming season, I look at that more so that relationship between the quarterback and also the head coach. Do you have that great dynamic between those two? Do you have the quarterback? Do you have the coach? Are they working on the same page? Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. I mean, now look, I'm not – it's Bucs and everyone else, so I'm not putting the other through 5 teams in order here because I know people are saying, you don't think Kansas City's second? I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I'm looking at the dynamics between quarterback and the head coach. What kind of dynamic are we looking there? And I start with that. And then because that coach traditionally is going to try to do every single thing possible to put a good football team and balance the football team as he possibly can. And Seattle has done that. The entire tenure that Russell Wilson has been there, they've never had a losing season in Seattle. They've never had a losing year. And that is something to weigh into, consideration when you're talking about potentially going out and trying to win a game. There's no question that that's got to be significant. And for me, Seattle's got to be one of the teams that you're talking about potentially that is going to be a team that's going to be on the NFC on the NFC side. So there's no doubt. Okay, I got Seattle. Kansas City's got to be in that conversation. Kansas City is a football team. Look at what they did in the offseason. You know what you love about Andy Reid and all the things that he was able to accomplish? Andy Reid was able to go into the offseason, and he knew immediately after he lost those 2 offensive tackles, and he knew that he had to retool those offensive tackles. He goes out, and he ends up getting Orlando Brown, and as we talked with Bill Moss yesterday, Bill was talking about, or the other day, Bill Moss was talking about how they made it a priority for them to make sure that they went into the offseason, making sure that they were going to find themselves an ability to be able to retool that offensive line. They had to retool that line. You can't do this. You can't have a $500 million quarterback and a 2-cent offensive line. Okay? You just can't have it. Okay? You just can't have it. And that's what their major priority was. Remember, they went out, they made sure they signed a defensive tackle. They made sure they went out and did every single thing possible to put that football team in a position where they had balance once again in the cap. Okay? And that football team is going to be right on pace, in my opinion, to really be a player in the AFC. Got to remember something here, too. The AFC has run through Kansas City the last 3 years, and it easily could run through Kansas City again. So right there, Kansas City, Seattle, probably right there, those two. All right. The Packers. This is all with the asterisk, okay, of Aaron Rodgers and the Packers working it out. I actually think that this dynamic between Matt LaFleur and with Aaron Rodgers, if you notice the one thing that Matt LaFleur has done, Matt LaFleur has stayed completely out of it. He has stayed completely out of the conversation. He stayed away because you know what he doesn't want to do? He doesn't want to have to get into a position where he's got to go back to Aaron Rodgers and he's got to ask him for forgiveness on something that maybe he said publicly. I have not heard Matt LaFleur say one thing publicly. That is a brilliant move by the head coach. And I think Aaron Rodgers is seeing that. And Rodgers is being cognizant of that. This is not an issue between the coach and the player. This is more of an organizational issue with Mark Murphy and with Aaron Rodgers. This is where I think that whole scenario plays itself out. And if it's going to get resolved, Packers got to be in the conversation potentially for another shot at winning an NFC. All right, I'm going to take another quick time out here. We'll take her home here. I'll give you the final 2 teams. You keep it right here on the National Football Show.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. catch a wave, take a nap. Go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
The light from a star can take millions of years to reach Earth. So when you look at a star, you're looking back in time. But I see the future. I see exploration and courage. I see my country finding new horizons out there. And I see giant leaps making a comeback. I see myself. The future is where I'll make history.
D-A-T-L-E-S-E-O! Jody Mack, the legendary sports talker, joins forces with NFL insider John McMullen. Start your morning with Johnny Mack and Jody Mack across the JAKIB Media Network.
Dan Sileo here on the National Football Show. Hope your Friday's going well. Right? That was great for the weekend. Man, we're just a couple weeks away from free agency. We're also getting ready in a couple months for training camp. How absolutely awesome is that going to be, getting the National Football League? And what you're going to love about it is you're going to be able to love the fact that you're going to be able to have the fans back in the stands again. You're going to be able to get all the people again and all the NFL fans that we saw during the draft, the 160,000 that were there in Cleveland Plaza there as they were cheering on the draft and all that stuff, man. I mean, I can't wait to see the fans back in the stands. And as I said a couple segments ago, I can't wait to see it back when, we're talking about having them back in the college game. I think that's one of the most important things. Real quick before I finish up here, because, again, these teams really separated themselves, I thought, when it came to building their process and building their foundation to get ready for 2021. I do want to say this. Supposedly there are people now talking in Jacksonville about the reluctancy of potentially signing a Tim Tebow to the roster. Now, there's naysayers on both sides here, because on one hand, people are doing this. They're going down the line like this. You mean to tell me Urban Meyer, with all the resources he has and all the money that he has, you're trying to tell me that guy doesn't have another option? I mean, what about Zach Ertz in Philadelphia? You mean to tell me that you can't? Now, I know June 1 has to come first before you can make any kind of calls legally when it comes to moving a free agent, and especially a player like that. Or under contract. He's not a free agent, I don't think. I think he's got another year on his deal. So, you have to wait until June 1 before you're going to make any kind of comments like that, or whether or not you're going to really go out and pursue somebody like that. So I would sit there and I would say this to you, man. I would go, all right, he's the only guy you went out and thought enough to make a deal with, that Tim Tebow you really think is going to help your football team. He's not, and there's this side of it. Okay, so wait a minute. He's never played the position. You need help at that position. You sign a guy that You have no idea if he can even play the position, and you put him in that role. I mean, I would say, as a football fan and as a football person, I would even make this comment. What's the point? I mean, we're trying to get a roster with good players on it. We're trying to get a roster with people on it that can help our football team. So I see that side of it. There's a great point. And, I started doing the scale too myself. Now watch this. Okay, could Colin Kaepernick help a football team? Yes. Can Tim Tebow help a team? Ask yourself that. Put that on the scale here. Could Tebow help a team? How? He can't help at quarterback. We gave him numerous opportunities to play in the National Football League, did we not? And he couldn't succeed. Now he's going to try to make a team never playing a position. And again, I'm not crapping on it. I'm just kind of pointing out the facts here. Okay, so he's never played it, but yet I'm under the impression that he's supposed to be able to help a football team out. How is he supposed to be able to help a team when he's never played it? Could Kaepernick help a team? Absolutely. Could Tebow? I don't know how. Selling tickets? Name recognition? We're not talking about really things any longer that are on the football field. Okay? We're talking about things that are on the peripheral. And, I don't know how you don't and you can't plug that in. So the reluctancy of some teams, I can kind of get the understanding why, if there could be some assistant coaches in the building that are potentially saying this, well, okay, how can he help our team when he's never played a position before and he hasn't played in 10 years? How does that even remotely sound like something that would be something that we would be interested in? Okay? And if his name was Tim Smith, would he be getting this opportunity? It's fair. It's fair. His competitiveness. Well, welcome to the NFL. When Urban Meyer says that, and he says that stuff, that Tim Tebow's competitiveness is greater than anything that you've ever seen in your entire life, well, guess what? That's not true. Urban Meyer's going to get a really good sense of what competitiveness is when he gets into the NFL, and when he's one of those football teams that, unlike the times that he shows up on Saturdays when he's at Columbus or in Gainesville and he's got the best talent on the field, and when he rolls into football games and he doesn't have the best talent on the football fields any longer, he's going to get a real awakening on what it is like to be competitive. You're going to find out, because the NFL is built like that for a reason. So I kind of got, and again, people have asked me, are you against it? I'm not against it. But then when people started pointing out to me, okay, his situation where, how does he help? How does he help a football team? He really doesn't help a football team. Okay? He really doesn't. Okay? This is more about just selling tickets. And this is really more about just him. And him, is he selfish in the fact that he wants to take a roster spot? I mean, away from a guy who can actually help the team. How about this? Even if you hired the worst tight end in the NFL right now who's a free agent, it would be better than anything that he could bring to the table, wouldn't it? I'm talking just player-wise here. I'm not talking about all the other intangibles that Tim Tebow brings to a football team. Not at all. Okay. I want to finish up here. I told you Bucks, Hawks, and Packers. And I threw the Chiefs into that conversation. Obviously, that I think the Chiefs, these four teams are going to be, I think, primed and ready to potentially. But there's always an outlier team. A team that kind of jumps up and you didn't see it, but you have seen their roster. You have seen, and I'm going to make this point to you. It's about the NFC West. You know, do the 49ers – I think the 49ers could either finish last or I think they could finish first. And I think this division may actually be the best division in all of football. Go down the line here. Did the Arizona Cardinals get better? They were 8-8 a year ago, and they were considered one of the worst teams in that division, right? Did they get better? They went out and got J.J. Watt. A year ago, they got DeAndre Hopkins. I think that dynamic is going to be better between Cliff Kingsbury and with Kyler Murray. There's that dynamic again with the quarterback and with the head coach. I think that plays into it. I think they'll be better. Are they going to be better than the other two teams that I'm going to pick to finish in the top part of that division? Probably not, but they're a tick right there. They are right there. Okay, where does San Francisco fit into this? Here, let's just go up the division. Okay, the Rams. You think the Rams got better in the NFC West? I think the Rams got better in the NFC West with a signal caller. I actually do. I think they got better. I think that football team now has Matthew Stafford. I think when you have a guy like Sean McVay that has been dying to have a quarterback like this in his huddle, and I mean this, think of this for a minute, okay? You remember Kevin Garnett? Remember the basketball guy who played up in Minnesota for all them years? Man, we all knew Kevin Garnett was good. Everybody knew Kevin Garnett was great. We knew he was phenomenal, but he was in Minnesota. Matthew Stafford, we all knew he was great, but Matthew Stafford was in Detroit. Matthew Stafford's thrown for a boatload of yards. He's been put on his head numerous times. He has been, without a doubt, been one of your better quarterbacks in the NFL. But he's been in Detroit. Now he's in LA. They've got 10 primetime games, the Rams. He's now with a coach that's going to expose all of his greatness. I have been a fan of Matthews. Look, I think the Rams could easily. I personally think the best division is the NFC West. And I think one of these teams could win the Super Bowl. Now I'm going to get to the 49ers here in a sec. But I really love this Rams team. You got Jalen Ramsey on defense, and on the other end, you got Aaron Donald, the best defensive football player. Man, that's some good stuff, man. Okay, that's some great stuff. Now you've got the 49ers. Okay, now you've got the 49ers. Here, watch this. If Jimmy Garoppolo, if he's healthy for 17 games, I think that team can win the Super Bowl. If Jimmy Garoppolo misses half the season, they'll be where they were the last couple of years without a quarterback. It's like having it's like the headless horseman. That football team, in my opinion, has all the intangibles on being a great one. They really do. They have really all the things it takes, okay, except the most important position. The thing that we've been hammering on here today. If you don't, I don't care who you are as a coach, if you do not have that position covered, and they think they've addressed it with Trey Lance. My only problem with Trey Lance comes from a small school, and I know North Dakota State, that's where Wentz went. Wentz has had success in the NFL. I mean, you can dissect whether or not you believe the type of success that I'm talking about. He still made it, still became a first-round draft choice, and he's had success in the NFL. Now, does he continue coming off that season that he had a year ago where you look at him like he did in 17? We'll find out, right? He's on a better football team. He should have a better season. He's on a better team. There's more components on that football team for them to be able to be a team that could be considered a champion team. So I like the 49ers' chances this year. They're the outlier team because they have the Super Bowl. John Lynch, the general manager, and Martin Mayhew, who worked in that front office, putting all those components together, okay, did a spectacular job at putting all the pieces together for that football team. Again, the quarterback position will be essential on whether or not they get to an NFC title game or whether or not they're going to be in the top 5 when it comes to the NFL draft again. They're the sleeper team, are the 49ers. And look, I think Seattle's no sleeper team, obviously, as we know. That football team is primed and ready to be one of the better teams in the NFC. Hey, man, we've had a great week again. We appreciate every single person that has stepped in with us over the last week. By the way, all the interviews are there on our channel, the JAKIB Media channel. Go back and please watch any of the ones that you may have missed. Be prepared for a great Monday. We'll have a whole boatload of folks jumping aboard, and we'll keep it real. And the only place you can catch the big sales is right here on the National Football Show. We'll catch you on the flip side.